we're continuing with our life purpose discovery. We're still looking at design. Now, yesterday we looked at strengths. Today we're looking at weaknesses. Our theme verse is still Jeremiah 29:11, so that you can discover the plan that God has for you. Now, we looked at the physical body, and we talked about those strengths in your body, as well as limitations that you may have in your body. Then we looked at design strengths. And here's a different way to look at it. You know, if you look at what you love, and we're going to talk more about passion, but if you look at that first red circle, it's kind of confusing because they're all red, but that top circle, if you think about what you love, we're going to be talking about your passion and even your mission, that's part of calling. If you look at what the world needs, not just you, but what does the world need? Well, the world needs certain things. And then if you look at what you can be paid for, now there's where your job comes in, right? What can you do that someone will pay you to do? Well, then that becomes your profession or vocation. Sometimes we call it your career. But that's what you're going to get paid to do a job. And then over there, what you're good at. And that's what we've been talking about strengths. So if you know all of these, guess what that star is in the middle? That is really where what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. That is your sweet spot. We're going to talk about convergence, and that's kind of the convergence of all of these coming together. You don't want to be trying to find a job that you get paid for that the world does not need, you do not like, you're not good at it. That's not going to be any fun at all, right? You don't want to spend your life doing that. So I like that picture. I think that's a good picture for what we're looking for as you're doing this life purpose discovery. Now, most people don't like to think about their weaknesses because many times we've been taught to think that, oh, if I'm not good at something, if I have a weakness, then I'm a failure. That's not true. That is not true. So we're going to look at today at how we need to know our weaknesses. Now, we said yesterday that you're born with your strengths, right? Okay, well, guess what? You're also born with your weaknesses. And we looked at some of the things you're just naturally good at, right? The things that you were good at even as a child, even when you were little. God put those strengths in you. Well, a weakness is just the lack of something. It means you didn't get that strength. You got a different strength. None of us are good at everything. Nobody's good at everything. I'm not good at everything. Dr. Les is not good at everything. Nobody's good at everything. So God put certain strengths in you, and a weakness is just something you don't have, okay? So strengths are the inborn talents, and the weaknesses are simply the lack of those talents. So, that's okay. If you're weak at something, the best thing you can do is partner with somebody who's good at it. Now, that happens in marriage. When you're working at a job, That's why at a job, you work with other people, because there's gonna be somebody who's good at something you're not. And you're gonna be good at something they're not. You're finding that out even here at Nana's house, right? That's why you need to work together as a team. Because everybody's not good at everything. So, I think you're learning, you know, if you want some help with math or finance, who do you call? Who helps you with that? If you need help with money, math, John, right? John's the one helping with that. If you wanted to know something about baking, or if you need, like John he wanted to buy some cookies for one of his friends for their birthday. Who did he go to? Mercy A, that's right. If you wanted a meal cook, well, you'd go to Jerry. If you wanted a video made on Final Cut Pro, you're gonna go to Jessica. Okay? So we're all good at different things. We already know to go to Mercy for our sewing and gardening and all of that. And Kevin can climb the trees like he's a monkey. And you know, one of these days, you're gonna be up there in the tree and the monkey's gonna be there with you. And the monkey scared you last week when he came jumping on the bushes. Wait till you're up in the tree and he comes up there. So we're all good at different stuff. Now, here's what's important. So are you getting me so far that you don't have to be ashamed of a weakness? You don't have to be embarrassed about a weakness. You don't have to try to pretend that you're great at everything. You just go, yeah, I'm not good at that. There is plenty that I am not good at, I can tell you. So, now here's a common assumption. Well, let me say this. Let me just share some of my weaknesses with you so that you can begin thinking about this. I have told you guys before, I'm not good at math. You know, when I was in school, Jessica, when I was in, Form 1, 2, 3, 4, really. Well, from the time I was in class 6, my 6th grade teacher said that I was really smart. And so he put me into like the advanced math. So beginning in 7th grade, 8th grade, and on up, I was in some of the more advanced math classes. And I made A's. I have no clue how I did that because I just don't do numbers. So I don't know how I did so well at that back then, because now just do not ask me about numbers. And I tried to avoid doing anything with math. I'm not good at math. They say that there's like one part of your brain that's really good with like math and science. There's another side of your brain that is really good with like words, history, that kind of thing. Well, I'm definitely not on the math and science side. I'm over here on the reading, history, words. I'm with the words over here. So, I know that. I'm not good at doing the same kind of work over and over again. So I would be horrible working in a factory. You know, in a factory, many times you're standing there and you're putting the same pieces together over and over. Oh my God, that would just kill me. I just can't do that. I have to be doing something different all the time. So as I've discovered that about myself, that has helped me to understand what kind of jobs I like and what kind of jobs I really hate and I'm not good at. I remember back in like 1995, we had moved from North Dakota down to Texas, and we were living in, that was Kansas City. Now I'm thinking about Kansas City. Kansas City was about the year 2000, and we needed money. And so I had to go out and get a job. And guys, let me tell you what, I was almost 50 years old, and I had never worked at like a regular job. Because I had been in school, like you had been. Then I went to university, then I got married. And so I was home taking care of my husband and my children and working in the church. And so here I was at like 48 years old, and I had never gone out and like gotten a real job. Okay, what they call a real job. That was pretty scary. And I remember looking in the want ads in the newspaper where they would list all kinds of jobs that you could go and apply for. And I was willing to do anything. I thought, well, you know what? I could work at a bank. I could probably get a job as a teller. Now, if I had thought about that for about 2 more minutes, I would have realized, no, if you don't like counting and you don't like math and you don't like I would have been horrible at that. I thought about some other jobs applying for, and I would have been awful. As it was, I went and applied for some sales jobs, and I was pretty good. The only problem was you still had to do the cash register and count all the money in. At the end of the night, you have to balance. It's not just giving the customer the change. I could do that. But at the end of the night, they've given you a certain amount of money. And there's all the receipts of all the sales you've made. You have to be able to balance and be sure all that money's there. Oh, that was a headache for me. So it's important to know, what am I good at? What am I good at? Mercy J knows I like to work. I don't like sitting at a desk. Of course, I don't really like being inside. I didn't have a choice about that. I had to work inside, not outside. But I ended up being the manager of the warehouse at a business. And I loved it because I was on my feet, I was walking all the time, and I was organizing. I was organizing everything in the warehouse on the shelves so that when they needed something, we could find it. I did the shipping, I could make all the boxes. And let me tell you what, I was almost 50 years old. And I had to lift like 50-pound boxes and unload furniture from the big truck that would come every week. I had to be lifting but I did it, and I liked that job. I really liked that one because I wasn't having to sit at a desk. So it's important to know, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. I'm good with people. I'm good with talking. But I'm also very active. And I don't like sitting at a desk. I don't like sitting at a computer. That's why I have John do a lot of it. I have Jessica learning to do more of it because I don't want to sit there. If you want to sit there, great. I want to be outside with Mercy, Jay, and Kevin in the yard. So it's important to know and to begin to think about, what are your weaknesses. Let me tell you about Dr. Lessina. I'm better with people than he is. He's better with the computer. You guys know he's Mr. Computer Man. He can fix the internet. He can work on the computers. He can get us working on the internet and all of that. That's what he's really good at. He's the math and science guy. When our kids needed help with homework, I would help with English and composition and all that, and he was helping with the math and science. We work together as a team. So we have different spiritual gifts, we have different personalities, but we also then have different weaknesses and strengths. But when you work together as a team, then he can be strong at what he's strong with, and I can be strong with what I'm strong with. Now, here's the common problem that most people make, though. There is a very common assumption that to be a success, to do well, to be great, you need to find your weakness and work really hard on that weakness so it's not a weakness anymore. Okay, I want you to look here at me. Look, that is not true. Okay? So a lot of people think that's the way to become successful, is to always be working on your weakness. Now, if I was doing that, that would mean I would be studying computers, and I would be studying math, and I would be trying to get really good in those things. That is a waste of time, okay? So, in the book, Discover Your Strengths, by Buckingham and Clifton, they explain how that idea is crazy. They turned that idea up on its head. They did an extensive survey, and they found that all of us can be our best. We can be the most successful if we develop our strengths, not our weaknesses. Not our weaknesses. So, don't spend your energy trying to improve your natural weaknesses. Now, again, we're going to talk about character weaknesses later. That's not the sign. But your natural weaknesses, no. Instead, find your talents, invest most of your energy into making them world-class strengths. You know, you want to be really good. And then shape your role. Find a job where you're going to be able to really be great at that strength. So what does that look like? Now, I understand, Kevin and Jessica, that when you're still in school, when you're still from, whether it's class 1 up to Form 4, the teachers are telling you, you have to study these subjects, whether you're good at them or not, right? I mean, you have to take math, whether you're good at math or not. You have to study Kiswahili, whether you're good at Kiswahili or not. You have some choices where you can take business or agriculture, or where you can take computers or something else. So you have some choices, but here in Kenya, they don't give you many choices. They do not give you many. Although, let me say this, it sounds like, from what I've heard and understand, the new system, you know, the new educational plan like that Silas is starting with in class 4, it is aimed more at you being able to study the things you're strong in. And that will really help. That will really help. Right now, they're putting a lot of pressure on you guys to be good at something you're not good at. Now, I did appreciate what one of Jessica's teachers said. Do you remember? I don't remember what the teacher's name was. But Jessica, she said, the things that you're scoring real low, I mean, you've got to try a little. I mean, you've got to do the work. You've got to do the assignments. But she basically said, just do the assignments, and those things you're not good at, don't worry about. She said, work on the things you're really good at. Because what happens, on the test you take at the end of Form 4, it wants like your total number. So if you score low on a few things, you can make up for that by scoring really high on the things you're good at. If you spend all your time trying to study, let's say math, if you spend all your time and energy trying to bring that math score up, you might work and work and work and work and work and bring that math score up 5 points, which really is not going to help at all. Whereas if you do really well in one of your other subjects, it's going to be up here. You're going to make so many more points. Why? Because you're working on your strength. You see, you're building on your strength, not trying to fix a weakness, which is something God never made you good at. You're just not good at it. There's some things we need to face. We're just not good at it. So in school, yeah, you've got to do all your work, you've got to do all your assignments, you've got to study and try to learn. For one thing, that's how you find out what you're good at, right? Until you try something, you don't know if you're good at it or not. Kevin, if you never did any athletics, you wouldn't know if you were good at sports or not, right? When my kids were little, I tried to get them to do as many different things as possible. They all took some sports. They all took some music. They tried piano. Sarah played drums. They tried some different music. Because you don't know what you're good at if you don't try it. So in them trying out sports, Caleb found that when he was born, he was missing part of a vertebrae in his back. And if it had been just a little bit worse than it was, he would have been permanently crippled. He would have had what they call spina bifida, which is a very serious birth defect. Well, it wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough that he could not do sports. Because in sports, if he was hit there or something, he could have been paralyzed. Matthew was not good at sports. Aaron played football. Sarah did volleyball. I think that was, and cheerleading. Those were her two main sports. It turned out that the best musician was Caleb. I told you, he could play by ear, he could read music, he wrote over 100 songs, he could play guitar and piano. He was the musician. But what if he had just tried sports and not music? So the more you can try, like, whether it's dance, whether it's art, you need to try as many things when you're young as you can. And I know that you may not have had opportunity to do some of those things. But Mercy, how would you know you're good at sewing if you hadn't done sewing? How would you know that you were great at gardening if maybe you just stayed inside and read books all the time and you didn't go out and try gardening? So you need to try these things. You need to try as much as you can while you're young, because that's going to help you to see what are your strengths and what are the weaknesses. When you find a weakness and you go, wait a minute, no, I don't like that. We're going to talk more about this when we talk about spiritual gifts, because it's kind of the same way. You don't know what spiritual gifts you have until you try it. So, we started yesterday talking about strengths and skills, and I want to explain this again so that you're real clear. You don't want to confuse strengths with skills. The strengths, the way we're using the word strength, a strength is something you're born with. A skill is a practiced ability. So that's something you've worked on. You've really worked on this to have a skill. So we're going to use the term learned skills for the things that you're not naturally good at. But maybe you've become kind of good at it. Okay? So, for instance, like with me, I was not born good at math, but by working on it and being in those events, I got fairly good at it. But definitely it is not my natural strength. Okay? It's possible to be good at something that doesn't come naturally. Okay? I am not the kind of cook Jerry is. I don't have the kind of patience. I'm not precise. I don't have the skills that Mercy A does. I've always said I don't do cakes because I don't have the patience to do cakes. I want to go in there and just kind of throw it. I'm not going to stand there for 2 hours decorating that cake. Okay, so now, have I cooked for over 50 years? Yeah, I have. And have I learned a lot? Yeah. In fact, I've been teaching Jerry and Mercy A what I know. But is that a natural strength? I don't think so. So you're going to learn some things. You're going to get good at some things, either because you just have to. Sometimes you're in a job that sure isn't something you would have picked. But by having to do it, sometimes you get good at it. But it's not a natural strength. So if you've ever been in a job, you guys probably haven't, you may have had to do some things here you didn't like. Or maybe at school you were asked to do some things that you didn't like. And you know that when you're being put in a position where you have to do a job that you're not good at, do you want to do it? No. When you get up in the morning and you think, oh, I'm going to go do that job, how do you feel? You're like, oh, God, deliver me. Dr. Les tells the story of one job he had when he was in engineering. And he had a great job. It was probably one of the best and highest paying jobs that he ever had. And he was great at it, and he was not trained as an engineer. That's a whole nother story. Because again, he didn't go to school, he didn't study anything about engineering, but he got that job. And they made him a full engineer without a degree. But every day he went to work, he said he would walk through those doors and say, oh God, deliver me from this job. Do not make me go to work here again. Why? Because his heart, we looked at those circles, what do you like? His heart was to pastor, to do ministry. And for 5 years, he had to do that engineering job. Why? Well, he had a wife and 4 kids. We had to eat. He couldn't just be a pastor. It wouldn't pay enough money. He was a pastor. He was actually a pastor while he was doing that job. But being a pastor didn't give us enough money to eat. So he had to also be an engineer. But he didn't like it. It just sucks the life out of him. Well, you don't want to spend your whole life doing a job. Sometimes you will have to do a job you don't want to do because you want to eat, like we did. And you'll be thankful God supplied that job, like we were. But it's not what you want to do your whole life. It's not what you want to do your whole life. You want to be able to work in an area where you can use your strengths and where you will love it and enjoy it. So remember, weaknesses that you've been able to overcome or compensate for are not strengths. Again, you may have gone from a 25 to a 30. Look at this camel. That is one of the funniest pictures I've ever seen. I don't know if the camel was born that way. I don't know if he stepped on a landmine that blew 2 of his legs off. I don't know. But I can tell you, a camel is supposed to have 4 legs. But he's learned to walk on 2. That camel has learned to walk on 2 legs, kind of like an ostrich. You know, when I saw his shape, I thought, well, maybe he's able to balance kind of like an ostrich does. So he's compensated, right? He has survived. He's overcome. But you know what? Life would be a whole lot easier if he had 4 legs, right? So you want to walk on all 4 legs, not have to figure out how to do 2 legs. So remember this. Natural weaknesses. We're considering natural weaknesses today. We're talking about, it might be physical weaknesses, it might be mental weaknesses, it might be, you know, like I said, you're just not that good with math, or you're not real good with languages, or maybe you can't sing good. You know, if you can't sing good, you could study music and you could take singing lessons, but chances are you're still going to sound bad, okay? Because you don't have a good singing voice. We are not talking about character weaknesses. We're going to come back and talk about those later. So, because if you have character weaknesses, you better fix them. If you have a character weakness, you do need to work on it and you need to get it fixed, or it will destroy your life. But a natural weakness, no. Natural weakness, do the best you can. If you can't cook great, so what? Go out and work in the garden and sew. Mercy J's already told me she don't like working in the kitchen, so I try to keep her out of the kitchen as much as possible. Don't blame me if Miss Polly puts you in the kitchen. It's not my fault, okay? So, here's the other important thing to remember, is that it's only when you're building your skills on top of your natural strengths that you're going to really be successful. So if you have a weakness, don't spend all that time and all that energy trying to get great on this weakness. It's a weakness. No matter how good you get at it, you're not going to be very good. Okay? That's like the 6 years I kept trying to take piano. It was pretty hopeless. Okay? We spent a lot of time and money on those piano lessons, and pretty hopeless. Okay. But if you have a strength and you spend time and money working on that skill, whoa, then you can be great. You can be great. And that's why you're studying this now. Because when you're out of Form 4, Now you're in a place of having to say, okay, what are my strengths? What do I love? What do I want to study? When I think about the kind of job that I would like, you better know yourself. You better know your personality. You better know your strengths. You better know your weaknesses. See, I didn't know. Nobody taught me this stuff. I didn't know this. That's why I spent so long trying to get better at stuff I was never going to get better at. But you, by knowing this, you're going to be able to then pick a career that's a match. A career that matches your strengths. A career, a job that is not your weaknesses, but your strengths. Then you'll love doing it. You'll love getting up in the morning and going to work. You'll love getting paid for something you want to do anyway. Right? So that's why we're studying life purpose discovery, because you want to maximize your impact. And if you're going to have impact, if it's going to have great impact in your life, if you're going to make money, if you're going to impact other people, whether it's helping the poor or helping other orphans or changing the economy in Kenya, whatever it is, you need to be allowed to function in your strength, not your weakness. God made you with the potential. You have potential. I don't care what your grades were in high school and secondary, you have potential. And you have the potential to make a positive difference in the world. God made you so that you could have an impact. And God has given you skills and passions and personality and spiritual gifts that are going to combine to make you different from anybody else. You're unique. And all of those things, the skills, the passions, the personal gifts, are like the tools that have equipped you. When Mercy J goes out to work in the garden, she needs the jumbo. She may need a rake. She may need pruners, scissors, all kinds of different tools. She could do it out there just in the dirt with her hands and a stick, but that would really be hard, right? Well, God hasn't left us with dirt and a stick. God has given you tools to equip you so that you can impact the world in a way that nobody else has. But to do that, you need to know what they are. There are still things that are inside of you that are dormant. Do you know the word dormant? It's like it's asleep. It's like a seed that has been put in the ground, but it hasn't germinated. The seed is just there, but nothing's happened to it. You may have gifts, you may have strengths that are still dormant, that need to be awakened in order for you to be able to reveal God to the world. So that's why I'm saying, even now, I want you to try different things. Sometimes you do different chores around the house. Sometimes I may ask you to do something that is not the normal thing you usually do. Because you might find, wow, I really love that. Well, I'm really good at that. You may discover that you like, that you're able to maybe play a musical instrument. Maybe you're able to write poetry. You know, Jerry doesn't just cook in the kitchen. He writes poetry. He's made some videos that are on YouTube. So you want to find these other things that you're good at. Now, when you're thinking about, when you're trying to figure out, okay, is it a strength? Is it a skill? Is it a weakness? What? Okay. Here's one caution. Again, projects and organizations require a balance of strengths to succeed. So if you're going to focus on your strengths, again, you have to partner or team up with others who have strengths where you're weak. If you're working at a job and you're not good at something, okay, let me give you an example. We have a friend named Alan, and he was put in a job and he was really struggling because it's a computer job and they were asking some things that he hadn't learned, and he was afraid he was going to get fired. He was afraid he might lose his job. Because if you're put in a job and you're weak, that means you're not doing very good. They might sack you, tell you to go. So then he went to some guys in the job who were better at that, and they helped him. So they both helped him to learn, but also he could work together with them so that they could help with the things that they're good at. He can work at the things he's good at. The same thing happened with Dr. Les when he became that engineer. When he first was hired to do the job, do you know what they hired him to do? They hired him to empty the garbage cans, sharpen the pencils. He was supposed to just be an assistant to the engineers. So if they said, hey, we need coffee, okay, I'll go get coffee for you. Hey, we need lunch, okay, I'll go get lunch for you. He was just an assistant. But you know what? They found out that he could do the math, and he could do the science, and he could do the jobs that they didn't like to do. So they began giving him the actual engineering work, and that's how he became an engineer. He was doing the work they didn't want to do, they didn't like to do, and that freed them up to do the other work that they were good at. Okay. Here's the second caution. Again, don't focus on your weaknesses. If you're in school, yeah, you got to do your homework and do some studying. But you want to build on your strengths. You want to build on your strengths. That's how you'll score high on the exam. That's how you're going to do well at a job. You want your boss to see you doing great in your strengths. Don't worry about those weaknesses. So when you think about the life purpose puzzle pieces, again, remember, when you're thinking about a career, then these three puzzle pieces can give you some big clues. The strengths, the weaknesses, the skills. That's going to give you some huge clues about what kind of job you're going to like, what you're going to be good at. So the physical body, this is another clue. Physical body, what special abilities do you have that you can turn into a career? What limitations do you have that can hinder that career? And I said yesterday that sometimes that changes over time. You know, part of this is the fact that I've always liked to be very active anyway. But another part is that now that I'm older, I cannot sit for a long time or it really hurts my back. If I'm sitting working on the computer, it pulls the muscles in my back and my neck. I'm having a lot of problems with this shoulder because the nerves get pinched by using the mouse and typing on the computer. So that's why I said, I don't want to be at that computer. I'm in physical pain if I'm sitting there for very long. So even my physical body then is saying, don't work on that computer too much. You know, we even got the special desk that will raise up so that I don't have to sit and work on it. I can stand and work on it. But then I hurt my knee, so now I can't do that either. So now I can't sit or stand, so forget it. Forget the computer. Okay. What are your strengths? What are your strengths? That's what you're going to be looking at tonight. Well, no, that's what you looked at last night. And I'm going to meet with you and go over all of this, but I'm wanting you to get enough stuff that then we're going to sit down. We're going to sit down and talk about your allegiance. We're going to sit down and go over this whole thing, strengths and weaknesses. But I want to do that one-on-one with you so that we can look at what you're good at and what you're thinking about. So tonight you're going to be looking at what are your weaknesses. Okay, so here is your homework. Now I want you to look at these pages very carefully and listen to me. Look up here. You see that there's 3 sections on your paper. This one says my weaknesses. This is the only part you're doing now. This is all. Don't do this, don't do this. We're going to come back to these much later. It may be 1 or 2 months before we come back to this, depending on how quickly we do the classes. But we're not going to cover this now. We're just looking at this. So tonight, or really until next week, you have time to think about your weaknesses and how do you feel when you're asked to do those things that you're not good at. How do you feel? How does it make you feel? Maybe you feel depressed. Maybe you feel like a failure. Maybe you feel stressed because you're under this pressure to do something you know you're not good at. I can tell you these are all going to be bad feelings because none of us feel good. None of us feel good when we're having to function in a weakness. Okay? So think about those things.